Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. This is the Board of Selectmen and partial Finance Committee joint meeting today, 21 April. This is a somewhat unusual meeting. It's really a follow-on discussion, a technical exchange session between the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee. It's a follow-on to our last session concerning articles for town meeting. And we're going to spend a few minutes today going over a couple of the articles that we discussed at the last meeting and how we packaged them to make sure we're both on board in terms of how it's structured and what it says. And in addition, the town administrator has a couple of changes to go over in terms of a couple of additional articles and a couple of minor things to the budget. Before we begin, I would just like to make two announcements. One, a big thanks to the rec committee. If anyone's been over behind the center school right now, they did a great job in setting up the field and the ball diamonds out there. It's really did a nice job. And the second thing I'd like to mention is next week, I think it's the 27th at 10 o'clock in the morning here, the architect who's designed the next phase of our town hall renovation, it's one of the things that'll be on the warrant for town meeting, will be here to present the plan, what's being done to, in essence, this work for this phase will complete the requirements of the Massachusetts Department of Public Safety, Architectural Access Board, making the building compliant with the Americans with Disabilities Act. And it primarily consists of elevators so you can get to all floors, some fire suppression, and a couple other small things. But anyway, if anyone's interested, welcome to attend, sit in, ask questions. We want to take on the, anyone here for public forum? No. Marlene, we want to start off with the budget. Want to hit those quick items first, and then we'll get to the meat of things?
Right. And I prepared an updated budget to reflect the Hatfield Cable TV department. That was omitted from the budget, and I have put in the salary. And I believe the previous budget you had did have salary. I also needed to include the expense. We should be appropriating that budget. And of course, that will all come from.
What line is that?
That is line 5.
Oh, there we are, cable TV.
And that does not come from taxation. That will come from the
Right.
fees that we receive from Comcast.
Yep.
So that is the only change that I made. Wanted to make everybody aware of that. And as you'll see on the financial summary page on the front, it does not change the levy limit number.
Right, which is a good number. Now, we'll be
Yeah.
under levy limit by $16,000 plus.
Almost
which is
17.
good.
Do you want to cover the other couple of quick changes before we get to the HRA article, to the,
In the warrant,
in the warrant?
I have
Won't take very
also
long.
added an article on page 2, Article 8, to establish an enterprise fund for the cable television, public educational, and government access operations. That is allowed now by statute. It's very similar to the water and sewer enterprise fund, same.
Is it something
Mass
we have to
General law.
vote on every year?
Well-
Like we do with, oh no, this
No,
is.
The
we don't-
inspectors.
right.
This is not a.
Right.
All right, sorry. my
Enterprise
brain was-
fund.
This is an enterprise.
We'll appropriate the money in the budget every year. It'll come from that enterprise fund,
Yep.
the fees that we receive. And, let's see, on page 4, we'll get into the articles for the center school. So at the bottom of page 4, I don't have it highlighted in blue, Article 16, I've added an article for the planning board, and that is
Zoning.
based on a proposed zoning change. And those are the only other changes. Selectmen will be signing the warrant Tuesday at noon.
Okay.
So the change we want to discuss
Yeah.
is Article 14. At our last meeting, we talked about merging the two articles that the
Yes.
redevelopment authority had submitted. And as you know, the town treasurer has stated that DOR had some concerns about borrowing.
Right. Why don't you
Let's-
run?
let's go
just
back
for-
and, just for
let's
folks,
update
yeah.
everybody on
Sure.
that. Let's tell them what the issues were and.
We're talking about an article that HRA has proposed. The guts of it are the HRA. And we tried in one article to kind of capture everything that needs to be done. It outlines the proposal to sell and describes what that would be. And then it also goes on to allow a certain time period for that to occur, and then if it didn't occur, it would revert back to the disposal of the building. Now, a couple of issues have come up since we had that session, and our treasurer can address those.
You know, you can't borrow to demo a building. You know, so it's something that requires special approval from DOR. So the way that the original article from October 21st at the special town meeting is that we had put in there, we had appropriated $300,000 to demo the center school, and then another $92,000 from free cash. And I had borrowed $30,000, and at that time I was made aware by DOR that we really shouldn't be borrowing to demo. Although the $30,000 is not obviously the building still standing, is something that we were able to do. But moving forward, this article addresses amending that article from special town meeting on October 21st so that I would be borrowing under Chapter 44, Section 734, which what will allow the DOR to grant us the ability to borrow to demo, if need be, or, you know, to sell or abate, whatever we need to do.
And under that, there's a timeline, right? It's
We
a
can borrow
note
for 5 years.
For 5 years, so it's
Is a
something that
max.
has to be paid off
We
in
do,
5
we have to pay
years.
it off in 5 years.
And can you go over the abatement side of it too? Because there's some issues raised with borrowing for abatement.
You can borrow to abate.
You
We can
Yes.
borrow to abate.
It
Is
was
there
the
a-
demolition
Demolition.
part that they had a
And
problem
we can
with.
borrow to abate and sell the building without having to pay that, because that was one of the issues, that loan would have to be paid off before.
Right, and another issue too that was brought to my attention is that, like, if we borrow to abate and sell, when I go out to bid, it's a tax exempt bond. And then at the time that we transfer this property, it's no longer a tax exempt bond. So at that point, things change with the IRS. So, you know, what DOR was telling me is that we would incur penalties between the tax exempt status and the taxable status, because now it's no longer an exempt property, and yet we're the ones that are gonna have like a 5-year borrowing on it. But again, Chapter 44, Section 734 allows that we would be able to maintain that tax exempt borrowing as long as we either sold the building for $100 or 100% of the proceeds went to the principal of the loan within like 30 days, a reasonable amount of time. And then we would not incur any penalties from the IRS.
Okay.
So what the Selectmen and the Finance Committee has is the article that was drafted after we spoke with bond counsel yesterday. And it has been submitted to bond counsel for his review. It was also submitted to town council for review. In the warrant, the actual town meeting warrant, under Article 14, there are some changes that town council has recommended, and that's in red. And I was talking to Laura Lee a short time ago and let her know that this will need to be submitted to bond council for review.
Can you just remind me about the need to borrow? I thought we had allocated the money for the demolition.
We did in 2014,
13.
13.
Yeah.
Through a borrowing.
It was
Through a
14.
borrowing.
Through a
October
borrowing,
21st,
which at the
14.
time, we were not told that we could not borrow for
We didn't,
for
right,
demolition.
we didn't know that.
We can use, the free cash that was appropriated at 92,000, we
That's what's on
could, we
record.
can use that for purposes of demolition.
Yeah.
No, well, let me say something different. First of all, the issue, I mean, it really wasn't our article that is the problem. The problem was your article of 2014 referring to. I want to make that clear that there's nothing that we proposed
No,
that
nothing.
was
Right.
inappropriate. And the article numbered here 14, we, of course, originally did not have the condition of 180 days on it. But at our last meeting, when we all discussed that everyone felt that there'd be a comfort level, so it doesn't go on another year maybe, that,
Right.
and we weren't 100% in love with that idea, but I think we understand there seems to be a desire to have that in, and that would result in a support of this article by the Selectmen and the Finance Committee.
And just to be clear, it just, at 180 days, it gives the selectmen the opportunity to do demolition. If a sale is in progress, if we're close, they can delay that as long as they want, so long as there's progress. Am I correct,
Yes,
Jeff?
absolutely.
Well, the other side is also that we would hope that there then would be, with this clock running, that there would be due diligence on the part of the selectmen to issue and work this project, to issue an RFP and have a short window, and if necessary, do a second RFP. I mean, 180 days is a nice window to do this job. Now, I don't know if, do you want to talk about the?
Sure.
There is some,
We have some good news that happened today. We have 4 abaters looking to quote, as we talked at the last meeting, see if we could get that 200,000 down. The first quote came in today at 65,000.
Great.
and this, just to remind everyone, and especially the folks watching, remember, we were working with a number that was actually over 300,000, but it involved abatement and demolition. Well, when you demolish a building, the project of abatement is much broader, because there's not gonna be a speck of the building left. With reuse, it's a slightly different. So as we discussed, we thought this bid would come in lower.
Yeah, well, you don't have to take off the roof, for
The
example.
roof is not touched,
Right.
so,
Right.
So, but we think that perhaps the number of 200,000 could be replaced with 100 for now, just to cover, because there will be expenses for doing a survey and
Legal fees.
And legal fees, just to be on the safe side, but we will no doubt probably return some of that 100,000
Yeah.
when we're done, so.
but I don't know if the 92 that's been coming out of free
Free cash.
cash, I don't know the language of the original article, if actually we could use any of that 92 for abatement.
I believe we looked that up. Marlene and Laura Lee, correct me, but the way that article is worded, it's worded for demolition, right?
Yes, that is
It is
correct.
not
So-
worded for
Yeah.
abatement, so unfortunately, we don't think we can use that money, so.
We
Which
thought we'd help
does
out
not
with it.
mean we lose that money, it
No,
just
it comes
means that
back.
money
Free
will
cash
come
again
back
at
to
the
the
end of the
town
year.
in free cash.
Right, which is a good thing. I mean,
Yeah.
And we did find out something else, but it may not be relevant, because actually Laura Lee, and I really applaud her for this research, we did find another statute that would allow borrowing for abatement, which is not subject to the restriction of demolition, the demolition restriction. But actually, the one that she has here is broader.
Yeah.
and will allow abatement were it for reuse or demolition. So this is fine. Otherwise, we had a suggestion for MGL language that would allow the town to borrow just for the abatement.
The only advantage would be that you could go 10 years with that.
Yeah, but now that we've knocked it down 100,000,
Yep,
maybe you
that's
don't care, you don't
Yep.
really want a 10-year note
Yeah,
on this.
Right,
anyway.
Right,
No,
right.
probably 10 years, okay.
So,
And
So
the other,
things
the
are
other
going
point,
well.
wasn't there some precedent for using that particular subsection, 34?
Right, that
So
was,
there's precedence with DOR in using that particular,
which is wonderful,
Yeah.
that we're not gonna have a surprise
right.
at the bond desk. So,
And what will the redevelopment authority's role be in, in taking lead on regarding this sale process?
It's not.
No? Okay, so the selectmen are
Care,
responsible
custody, and
for-
control is a separate issue. That's a 2/3 vote to change it, and we had that discussion when their council was here. We're not doing that.
So the Board of Selectmen are taking the lead on
Yes.
this process?
Right.
Okay, so I think what you said then in regards to timeliness is gonna be really critical with a 180-day timeline. So maybe
Right,
we
we-
can have a process to stay, I guess it'll just be on your agenda moving forward.
Sure,
Well,
We
there's a
certainly offer our
90-day
to kick it off.
to kick it off, and then 180-day to finish it, so.
I mean, the selectmen may want our advice of what we've been doing for the last year.
Well, I would
but,
hope you would be actively involved in it. I mean, you've put a significant amount of time.
Well, we think we've identified some good buyers, possible bidders on the RFP.
Right.
So,
Do you think that, and I certainly understand lowering the cost, but do you think it should be just a little bit higher than the 100,000? I mean, given the other things that are gonna have to happen to get the building ready, should it sell? Because if it goes over that by $1, we're back to town meeting, right? I mean, do you wanna make it 125? You're the ones that have the monies in front of you, the estimates. I just try to get it right the first time.
Well,
and-
Can
We
I,
answer your
can I piggyback on that question?
Sure.
When you requested these bids, did you do so as if you were a municipality or a private?
yes, it's prevailing wage.
Okay, yeah,
And in fact, we handed to the bidders a copy of Cardno ATC's report, which we spent the
The
30,000 on.
30,000 is,
right,
And they, and we said to them, please give us a quote without it being demolished. And so look at it, and there's a whole section that's very detailed about exactly how many square feet of asbestos in the basement, 156 sashes that have asbestos in the glaze, how many square feet in each room of mastic in the floor tiles. I mean, it's so detailed. And so when this bid came in, I was like, whoa, because I really thought it would be a bit higher than that, but.
but to address, Brian has an honest concern.
Right.
It's just like the timeline of 180. What if on the 181st day, we got a buyer?
Right.
Oh,
But, I don't know. I mean, this already, if, we only have one of the 4 bids. This may
Yeah.
not be this may be the lowest bid, maybe it's an outlier.
Sure.
And it's not a valid bid.
Okay.
We don't know yet.
Right.
I mean,
And certainly we could amend on town meeting.
Yeah,
floor to-
I guess that's I understand that the lower price is more attractive to people that are gonna have this conversation. I just don't want it to bite us
No, I'm with
later
you.
on. I don't know.
And it's a very
But by
valid-
town meeting, you'll have some more
We
quotes,
might have it
right?
by next
So-
week before you sign this thing.
Yeah, but in
You
any
know,
case.
if we get a couple more bids this week. I don't want the 65 to be an outlier and everyone else is in the hundreds.
Right,
Right.
well,
So we don't
That's-
know. It hasn't been
right.
tested.
okay,
It-
all right.
probably for now, to leave it at even 200,000 is.
We can always borrow
I was
less.
thinking,
You
yeah.
can always borrow less, but
Right.
it gets back to what happened when we originally borrowed the 300,000, and all of a sudden, we didn't have
The 92.
92, so let's.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking from the, yes, okay, all of us understand that, but how about on town floor? Doesn't it look nicer that it's a $100,000 article rather than 200, or?
Well, I agree, that's what I was trying to say, but unless it's gonna be more than 100,000.
Right. Well, I think
So,
we'll
right.
know a little more before you sign next week.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Yeah.
Hopefully, we'll get another bid or two, maybe we'll get all of them in.
It's Tuesday noon?
Yeah.
Tuesday noon.
Well,
It's not likely, but okay.
Oh.
you would be able
Again,
to.
on the floor.
On the floor of town hall, you'd be able to do that, and
Right.
I would assume there'll be some sort of documentation that somebody will put together to try to explain
Yes,
this.
The project.
In the simplest of forms.
Yeah.
So
Right.
people like me can understand it.
all right. I think that covers.
Are you okay on that?
I mean, is everyone
Can I-
okay with
can
it?
I
I was,
go back to Marlene, so you got this article, 14 and 15, so tell me, remind me again which article we're going for?
well, both.
Well,
Well,
I'll let Marlene.
Is this one gonna
this was submitted
replace,
to bond council.
is this the all-in-one?
Yes, what's Article 14?
Yeah,
Article 14 in the warrant is that same article, with the exception of the changes that town council made. And
Okay.
actually,
But we are adding 15 here.
we did add another Article
Do it-
15.
Okay, so,
My concern was, say it failed, for whatever reason. We need something that we pick up and continue with.
15
Not
is
a-
the
not a-
correction of a year
yeah,
ago.
right.
Yeah,
But shouldn't it have a dollar? It is the same dollar amount,
The
isn't it?
motion will have the
Yeah, the
dollar
mo-
amount.
But we know, I mean, you put a dollar amount in our article,
if your article passes, this one will table.
Okay.
you won't have to fix it.
Yeah,
Right.
we just table it.
Oh, I see, that's
It's as
why,
if Article 14 does not pass,
I
we still
get
need to move
Only
forward
if
with.
yours failed.
Right.
all right, I
Yeah.
got it,
Only if yours failed, then we'd simply table 15 and move on.
because it's kind of redundant, but you're right.
Right.
Yeah, got it now. All right, that makes sense. All right,
Yeah, I mean, again, I think what's gonna be important in that then is educating the voters, because if you're someone just reviewing the warrant, and you don't know that, 14 would be cheaper than 15, that could influence your.
Well, that's what I mean. It would be, if that said 392,000 to demolish versus 100,000 to sell it.
Yeah, so at least on the material that, you provide at town meeting to the voters, you could include that info. But I think it would also be appropriate in that article too, but.
Can we add that to the article,
Yeah,
the dollars?
'Cause
the
we know what it-
motions, the motion will have the
Yeah.
dollar amount.
But how come, sometimes articles have.
Some
dollar
articles
amounts.
do, and, yeah, sometimes you don't have to have the dollar amount, you're not required to have the dollar amount
I
in the
know.
article, but the motion must.
Can we have it in this one, so that way it's clearer?
No, that's the
392
selectmen's
versus
call.
100?
I mean, we know what it is. It has to be the same amount that we did a year ago, right?
Yeah,
Well, Article 15 will be 270,000.
Yeah, we,
And under Article 14, where we have 1, 2, 3, fourth line up from, 1, 2, 3, 4 at the bottom, yes. The sentence beginning with appropriate, borrow, or transfer a sum of money will be 270,000.
right.
How is it minus the 30?
minus 30
Minus
is
the
already
30.
spent.
92 still there.
The 92, we don't need to touch
Should
that.
still be fine.
Okay.
Fair enough.
All right, any other concerns about the project? I mean, are we good for support?
Just wanted to make sure we're all having the same.
Yeah, we were really good for
Conversation.
support last week. We
Right.
just, we got new information that needed to be
Discussed.
discussed.
All right, thanks.
All right,
Yeah,
Thanks
thank
a
you.
lot.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay,
So Daryl and John, so we will be meeting Tuesday, next Tuesday at 6:30.
Not the 27th.
Yes.
We're gonna meet the 26th.
Yeah, and,
and we'll spend some time going through all the articles and the budget and
okay.
give the highlights.
So I have a question, and it's related to finances, but the sale of this building. Now, what would trigger the Board of Selectmen to allow the redevelopment authority to take the lead in this process? I guess I don't understand why we wouldn't. We've got
They don't have
citizens
the
who are
care,
active and
custody, and
spending.
control. of the-
Well-
Couldn't there be like an ad hoc committee developed that involves them?
Well,
Seems,
my understanding is if they decided to turn it over to the HRA, they are a quasi-governmental, they work under a whole set of different rules. It would take them a lot longer to put a package together. They all have to get bonded. There's certain things they have to go to. My understanding, and this is what Chris and Larry told me, it's much cleaner and easier if the selectmen do it. It's a selectman's option if they want to appoint a committee to help them, but that's completely their
Well,
their
and I think
choice.
the important thing is, and it's, I didn't have the opportunity to say it while the folks from HRA were here, but as we've been saying throughout the entire process, and our charge is what happens at the vote at town meeting. If town meeting says to demolish it, it's gonna get demolished. Town meeting says to try to find a buyer, we're gonna try to find a buyer. That's what we're elected to do, and that's what we'll do, so.
And that's what we told HRA the first time they came in. Town meeting will settle this matter.
Right,
Period.
right.
I mean, I guess, my point is, just getting familiar with all this, it just seems to me that, when you have citizens so active, investing so much time in something like this, you would want to try to find every way you can to encourage that level of participation. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and a lot of it falls on you three, so if we can.
Well, and I think a lot of it's been done by, as Larry and Chris said, so, yeah. They'll be part of the process, but ultimately,
Yeah,
comes to.
ultimately the decision, yeah.
Is there a remaining article from last year that pertained to the Historical Society setting a time parameter of 1
Expires
year?
July 1, right?
1
Right.
July, that expires.
The demolition
What
delay.
implication does that have on this process?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah,
So we
couldn't
just
demolish.
ignore that?
That
Expires July
expires
1.
July 1.
Pardon me? Yeah, but will there be any affecting decisions prior to July 1?
Not as long as, if it were to be demoed, it happened after July 1. I mean, we're going to be fine.
Yeah.
Right.
Because that's when this
Want
whole
to make
budget
sure
kicks
that we're not
in
getting
and-
into somewhat of a gray area, and then it comes back to kick us.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Any other business?
Yeah, I have something.
I don't have anything else.
We're good.
No, I'm fine.
We'll see you Tuesday.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, John.